This is the Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat. A whining, roaring, supercharged family sedan. Or in other words, one of the world's most powerful four-door mass-produced muscle cars. Whew. Boy, this car is exciting. Underneath that massive bonnet is a 6.2 litre supercharged V8 Hemi engine producing, wait for it, no, whine for it, 717 horsepower. And just to put that power figure in context, the other cars that come with similar sort of power are Ferrari F8 Tributo, Lamborghini Aventador, Aston Martin DBS Superleggera, McLaren 720S. Those are all for $1 million dirhams cars each. And this car at about 1/3 of price gives you that amount of power. It's amazing. It's incredible what that engine can do in a family sedan with proper 4 seats. And none of those cars have seats as comfy as this one, as couch-like as this one, or even a boot that can hold up as much luggage as this. This car's luggage can practically hold up all their engines combined together. I may be exaggerating a little, but that's the point of this car. Exaggeration. At least in straight lines. Oh God. Now, having lived in Dubai, I am pretty aware of the stringent laws and regulations that are, and the hefty fines you have to pay once you break them. And I'm that kind of a person who, even if I take a right-hander on a single lane road, I'll still indicate. But this car, it just makes you want to do stuff. It just makes you want to not break the law, but marginally just tread on these fine lines of about to break them. It's an outlaw car. But since I've had this car with me, I still take the right-hander with that indicator. But right before that, I slow down way too much so that I can stamp on the accelerator and brake pretty quickly before I reach that right-hander, and then take that turn in normal civil speeds. And then once I come back onto the straight road is when I can do that same binary process again of just stamping on one foot and then pushing myself, or rather warping myself to the back of the other car, and then just braking just so that I can do it all over again. And speaking of taking right-handers, this car is about 2 tons. So you do feel the weight while turning this car in. And surprisingly, during fast bank turns or fast right curves, it still manages to hold grip, it still manages to keep traction, it still manages to turn fairly well. But during those tight right-handers or tight left-handers is when you really feel the weight on your wrists. And it almost feels like the steering and the rest of the car is just pushing or shoving you to the opposite direction of where you're wanting to go. Only because there's so much weight being shifted. And then you realize that this car wasn't really meant for taking corners and precision driving. This car was just meant to make you an outlaw. Just find an empty road and just stop and start and do that all over again. Now, this being a family muscle car, you can't just have stiff suspension and your engine power at its highest setting all the time, because you're going to scare your kids more than they're scared of you already. So there is some sort of drive modes. So that's street, sport and track. Now you can even have an individual driving mode where you can configure all of those things as per your desire or your preferences and have that on the car running at all times. And all of those include steering, the transmission, the traction control, the paddle shifters, the suspension. All of that can be configured as per your wishes in those 3 settings that I mentioned. Now, from whatever videos I've seen or whatever experiences I've heard, I know that muscle cars tend to slither about like a snake, even more than a snake, once you turn off the traction control. Even on this one, with the traction control turned on in sport mode, that is the second highest mode out of the 3, the car still slithers about like crazy once you mash the throttle onto the floor. Just like that. But I haven't been able to put it on the highest setting, the track setting for the traction control, because frankly, I believe I'm not experienced enough to understand or control the car as much when it starts to fishtail as crazily as I think it would. I'll give it a try, but I think even for the regular drivers who are driving this car, you should only put the traction control on track once you know you are capable of handling the car the way it's supposed to, and you know how the car would swing about once the power comes down, because it takes a while for the car to put its power down. There is a small delay of when you push the pedal to the metal and it goes. But between that delay, there's a lot of slithering about, there's a lot of wheel spin happening. So you need to keep all of those things in check just before you go that extra mile and put that setting of traction onto track mode. And if you do that, God help you, and I hope you are really skilled, because I would want to watch that, because I know this will be a hoot to drive once you know how to control this car and you know how to get the entire 717 horses of this down to the road how it's supposed to be in the most efficient manner. Now there are 3 settings to the suspension setup: the street, the track, and the sport, the track being the highest. Now on regular roads, when I'm highway driving, I tend to keep it on street mode only because that's the most comfortable setting, and the car does fairly well. It has a wafty kind of ride when it goes on through the highway roads, and that is good with me when I'm not pushing it. I just want it to be a sedate, a calm family sedan. When I'm ferrying my kids or my wife up and down, I don't want her to shout at me constantly because of how hooligan I'm turning out to be since I bought the car. But you can put it on track mode and the suspension stiffens up significantly. That may be really good on a drag strip or a racetrack, but we don't have access to either of those at the moment. So I'd just rather keep it on street mode, have a comfortable, decent ride, because these seats are really helping my ride. Very soft, very cushy, and yeah, it's just a comfortable cruiser until, again, you know how when to. Now, the steering is big for my liking, only because I understand it's meant for much bigger people than me. It's light on normal roads, but when you go through corners, you feel that entire weight of the car just shifting you on the other side, only because there's 2 tons of weight, and that pendulum motion is very significantly there. In faster banks and in normal curves, the steering and the grip holds up still very well. But on tighter turns, where you really have to slow down and just push the car to make sure you have that line of direction, that is when the car starts not to struggle, but it just screams at you or just lets you know that no, this is not for me. Show me a straight road, I will do whatever you want, but on curves, that is something the Dodge Hellcat Charger doesn't like. And I like the honest blue collar approach they've taken for the Hellcat's design. Every single vent that you see on the car is functional, right from this mailbox type inlet to cool the radiators, this hood scoop to push in more air to the superchargers to suck in, and then there's these vents on top of the bonnet to let all the heat from the engine dissipate upwards and let the engine cool much better. If you didn't find the looks of the car aggressive enough, Destroyer Grey. What about that? The name of the color in which we have the spec here. But more than that, there's this special badge. That's what you know as the Hellcat badge. That represents the 6.2 liter supercharged V8 engine that we're going to see in the moment. But before that, just let me give you a tidbit about how it got its name. It's basically named after World War II era fighter aircraft. Some other famous names that came out of that era: Mustangs, Spitfires, Thunderbolts. You get the idea. And now, for the crown jewel of the Charger SRT Hellcat. The 6.2 liter supercharged Hemi V8 engine in all its glory. You can see the supercharger up front, just looks glorious. I love how they've put it in its raw, bare form. And then just look at the size of this air intake. Massive. And the other special thing that you get within the bonnet of this car is the last call plaque, because I'm not sure if you know already, Dodge has discontinued this particular version of the Charger Hellcat. They already have an electric one about to be on sale. So for this final iteration, you get this last call plaque here, which says where it was designed, that is Auburn Hills, Minnesota, and assembled in Brampton, Ontario. Now, because the Charger Hellcat comes with a wide body kit as standard, you get wider flared wheel arches, extended side sills to make it look more seamless with the wide body kit, and the chunkier 20-inch tires with massive 6-piston Brembo brake calipers in red. To top off the rear, you get twin exhausts at the back, and the only major distinguishable identifiers are the SRT Hellcat badging on the front grille and right below the tail lights. As soon as you step inside, things are pretty old school. Right from the door handles to the parking brake pedal to the aircon buttons and even Type A USB ports to charge your phone. It all feels very 2011, and that's understandably so because Dodge really gave the interior an update back in 2011. But Dodge has tried to compensate you with modern features such as carbon fiber inlays on the dashboard trim, there's contrast stitching, there's ventilated seats. Even on the technology front, you get digital MID on the speedometer, a 8-inch touchscreen with smartphone connectivity, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and inbuilt navigation as well. But these are all just complimentary stuff that you're getting because this is a family car. What ideally Dodge wants you to provide with is gauges and performance meters such as temperature gauges, timers for your quarter miles, G-force meters, engine graphs to show what kind of power you're delivering, and dynamometer that shows how much power and torque you're delivering at particular gears. Now, the SRT dashboard showed you, or rather helped you gauge your car's performance. But then you have the SRT mode that basically helps you do various things such as line lock that basically helps you warm up your tires right before you're doing your quarter mile or just have fun with a burnout. There's launch control, so you can set the target RPM at which you want the car to launch. Then there's shift lights for your speedometer, as in when you want them to come up. And then there's the race cool down feature that basically once you've done your performance centric driving and you have shut off the engine cooling fans continue to run so that the engine cools down much faster, so you can go back on the track much sooner and also preserve the longevity of the engine. Now, because this is a 4-door family muscle car, we had to come back and check the rear seats out, and the news is pretty good. Especially on the legroom front, it's pretty spacious and the seats are very couch-like. So it's just superb to sit at. But the people over 6 feet tall, they might hit their head on the roofline because that slopes down pretty sharply. So taller people might not be the best bet to be put at the back. However, you do get seat heating options on the center console here and some USB Type A chargers because of the 2011 update I told you about. So if you want some charging solutions, rather get an old school type charging cables or just carry a power bank. Now, because this is a family muscle car, it comes with a pretty big boot, and that boot is needed because you might throw your German friends who say,
"Yeah, but your charger doesn't count as well, does it?"
let him be. Now, I know I've been going on and on and on about the engine, but if you keep that aside, there are a couple of niggles that could have been made better. For instance, the visibility. The side view mirrors are pretty small to look out of. Then there's the air scoop that comes massively in my vision. So basically I can't really see the sides. So while maneuvering in tight city spots, it becomes a challenge by itself. Plus, this is the wide body kit, so I am really nervous to take this in tighter parking areas and just making sure I don't curb the wheel. Then comes the infotainment system. It has all the necessities, yes, but the look and feel of it still feels pretty dated. Driving assistance systems, I know it just doesn't make sense for a car like this because for most of the time you'll be driving this car rather than using the driver assistance features, but you still need it in your daily commute if you're going to daily this car, which this car is capable of. It does get the standard stuff, that is the cruise control and the blind spot monitoring, but that's about it. And it's really a shame that they've put such a superb sounding Alpine sound system inside the Charger SRT Hellcat, because when you have a soundtrack like this right below your right foot, why would you want to hear anything else? And that is exactly what I did. I barely used that system. How is it to daily drive? It's fairly easy. It turns in pretty quickly. Yes, you do have to get used to the size because the size is massive. The car has presence on the road for sure thanks to the wide body kit. There's space for the family. There's a big boot at the back. The ride's pretty soft on normal regular speeds. It does get a bit stiffened up when you start pushing it, but yeah, I think that's just for your own enjoyment. Even the interiors doesn't have the most luxurious materials inside, but it does the job. So because the engine is so good and is so responsive and is so whiny and raucous, we just want to justify all the other shortcomings or niggles because of that engine, because you want to get that last piece of automotive history. And this literally being the last call, this is your final chance to own the 6.2 liter supercharged V8 Hemi, because Dodge isn't going to make any more of this. They've already gone electric and launched an electric muscle car. So, with the price at about 350,000 dirhams or so, this is 1/3. You're getting about supercar power at about 1/3 the price, with 4 seats, with a car that you can daily around and still not look like an aristocrat, but just go under the radar with that kind of power, at least on straight line speeds. So, should you buy one? You tell me. Looking at that, I think you really should. Only if you like living on the edge, you like wanting to be an outlaw, you like just wanting to have a piece of automotive history in your garage, which this car offers. And now I'm feeling sad because we are at the end of our shoot and I'll have to give this car back. And even more sad because the engine is gonna die and we won't get any more of this. It's just a bittersweet moment. Oh, I want one. Can we get one?
Nope.
But it will be a really good crew car.
Nah, this does not work, man.
But I really want one.
No!
Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to the Konya Impression. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Yash signing off with the Dodge SRT Hellcat Charger.